Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Today we have ourselves a jam-packed show, as we have quite a bit to get into, such as the Chargers sadly losing on Sunday Night Football to the Niners. It was a little expected, but they held tough. Can they bounce back against the Chiefs, or is it going to be another little loss to the Chargers? And the Rams are in major trouble because they lost to the Arizona Cardinals, but that wasn't the gist of it. They lost Cooper Kupp to injury. Is it over for the Rams? Do they just got to go into tank mode? Oh, wait, they can't go into tank mode. They have no first-round picks. Wah, wah, wah. And this week is USC versus UCLA week. Oh, boy. A lot of bragging rights on the line. A lot of Pac-12 rights are on the line. But what happened to UCLA? They lost to Arizona last week? The Wildcats? Man, that is a brutal loss. USC at least took care of business against Colorado. And San Diego State actually looked pretty competent as well, though it looks like their Mountain West Conference championships have sailed pretty much. All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful Friday afternoon. Without any further delay, let's get on into that Southern California sports action. But first and foremost, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform. IE Sports Radio can be found on several different social media platforms, such as Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at IE Sports Radio. You can also follow them on Facebook by typing in the word IE, then sports, then radio in the search bar. Also, they have a website, www.iesportsradio.com, and when you go to the top of the page, you will see a Patreon link, which starts at $5 a month. By the way, the page is revamped, by the way. This will get you a shout from all of our shows, and this show includes that. And higher tiers include iSports Radio merchandise, access to ISRU, the Podcasting University, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment with Larry B. Because for the past 8 years and counting, iSports Radio has been making amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've been continuing to be by the fans and for the fans. With your help, we are ready to take the next biggest step. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all of that sports. Shout out to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised Apparel, Key to the Gate, Anonymous, and, well, a donor that wishes to remain anonymous, and Marcus Los Great, who is actually in the chat room. He says, salute, appreciate you popping in. He actually just wrapped up his show, Gloves Off. It was actually the Season 3 finale. He went live the original time, the designated time SoCal was supposed to go on, and I honestly did not mind that because I don't have work till 7:30, and I'm not going to be leaving until 3 p.m. As of this recording, it is 1:09 p.m. Pacific time. So great stuff as always, Marcus. Great end to Season 3. He will be back on January 25th, 2023, so I hope you enjoy your time off. You deserve it, buddy. Now let's get on into the SoCal sports action. So we're going to go in chronological order in the NFL. We're going to start off with the Rams, just because, A, I don't want to talk about the Chargers just yet, and B, that was the game that happened first. So the Rams sadly disappointed me. Well, not just that. They wound up losing to the Arizona Cardinals 27-17, and obviously that was the bad loss. It was a bad loss just because the Cardinals were near the basement of the division, but it got worse for the Rams. They lost Cooper Kupp due to a high ankle injury, and now he's put on injured reserve. I unfortunately don't know the designation of how long his injury is supposed to last, but it's pretty bad. So unfortunately for the Rams, they are without their top wide receiver, and this is a big loss just because now the offense pretty much ran through Kupp. Matt Stafford pretty much just chucked the ball and said, F it, Kupp down there somewhere, and when your offense is basically 95% throw it to Cooper Kupp, reverse it to Cooper Kupp, Cooper Kupp, it's a recipe for disaster. Now Matthew Stafford is basically going to have to throw to other receivers like Tyler Higbee and Allen Robinson, which they have hardly used this season, and maybe Ben Skoranek. But it's just very bad for the Rams now. And speaking of Matthew Stafford, he actually did not play this past Sunday because he was still in concussion protocol. And it's unfortunate as John Wolford had to take the reins for the Rams. At the same time, the Cardinals were without Kyler Murray as Colt McCoy had to basically step in, and then Colt McCoy got hurt, and he had to come out, so Trace McSorley, the former Penn State star, basically had to step in and finish out the game. But overall, that game basically described the Rams' season. It's the perfect anomaly. Or basically, it's the perfect game to describe the Rams' season, just because two teams were playing their backup QBs. The Rams eventually lost their star wide receiver, in addition to losing two more pieces on the offensive line. One, I think, was a torn... I don't think it was a torn ACL. I don't know the full whereabouts of this injury, but it was like a damaged ACL, maybe UCL. He is going to be out for the season, it looks like, according to Sean McVay. And then another piece of the offensive line, he actually had his blood clots, so he's going to need to get checked out and be put on medication. He's also out for the season. I don't know if Cooper Kupp is out for the year, but the injuries are just piling up for the Rams. Now they know what it's like to be the Chargers. But for the Rams, their Super Bowl hopes of repeating it's pretty much closed, unless, of course, they get hot down the stretch. And the worst part is that the trade deadline's passed. They can't do anything to improve the roster. So it's basically they got to play with the hand that they're dealt. They have to deal with Allen Robinson, Ben Skoranek, Cam Akers, who is pretty much back. He's officially reunited and reconciled his differences with the Rams. And then also, the Rams also signed Malcolm Brown, who I want to say was a former Ram, but now he's back in the fold. Tyler Higbee's going to have to step up, which now Matthew Stafford's just going to have to throw it to someone that's not named Cooper Kupp. This week, the Rams have the honor of taking on the New Orleans Saints, as this game is going to be held I want to say it's going to be held in New Orleans, just because the Chargers have SoFi this week. And as a matter of fact, it is going to be held in New Orleans. It's going to be held at the, I don't think it's called the Superdome, but it is going to be held in New Orleans, as New Orleans is a 3-point favorite. So it is the Superdome. It's the Caesars Superdome. I always get the Falcons Stadium mixed up with the Saints Stadium, but I digress on that. So the Saints have been basically struggling, as well as they're starting Andy Dalton. Yeah, and they've basically had some struggles with QB, as well as they've had to deal with Jameis Winston and his struggles, and then once again, they're starting Andy Dalton, and heaven knows how that's going. And they just recently lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So for the Rams, they're just going to have to move on from Cooper Kupp and just deal with the players that they do have. I know Saints fans are probably still bitter from the no call from the 2018 NFC Championship. I can't blame them. But overall, for the Rams, if they want to have any sort of hope of making the playoffs, even though I think their window has closed, they're going to need to start running the table. It's going to have to start this week just because, well, the Saints are still ripe for the picking, and they don't have Michael Thomas. Obviously, they have Alvin Kamara still. Chris Olave has done well for the Saints in his rookie year. They still have Taysom Hill. So the Saints are basically using whatever scraps they have to try to assemble their still playoff hopes. Here's the difference between the Saints and the Rams. The Saints play in a lousy division of the NFC South. The Rams are dead last in the NFC West, which is, believe it or not, it's being strongholded by the Seahawks, with the Niners creeping right up behind them. So for the Rams, I just want them to, for the sake of Rams fans, I just want them to actually look decent. If they get clowned just like the Raiders did when they played the Saints, their season's pretty much done. It is officially over. Like, Matthew Stafford is basically running out of options. He is not a mobile quarterback. The offensive line is getting decimated, and Marcus is so funny. He says, dead last is where they belong, LOL. Yeah, very funny, Marcus. Especially after last year of what they did. I wonder what happened last year in the postseason. Anyway, so I see the Rams winning this one because the Rams, they're not this bad. They're not going to lose to Andy Dalton. Like, if they find a way to lose to Andy Dalton, they don't deserve the playoffs. They should be forfeiting the rest of their games. Like, because after they face the Saints, they've got the Chiefs at Kansas City. Yikes. They've got the Seahawks, which have drastically turned everyone's predictions on them 7-20. And then they've got, Raiders! Chris Berman voice. Which, on Thursday Night Football, can that be flexed out, by the way? Like, I'm just kidding. You obviously can't flex out Thursday Night Football games, but with how bad the Rams and the Raiders are, that's going to be ugly to watch. I feel for Al Michaels, by the way. And then the Rams have the Packers, which, of course, as bad as the Packers are, the Rams have no answer for the Packers in Green Bay. And then the Broncos defense is probably going to tear Matthew Stafford to shreds. And then the Chargers are probably going to fight for their playoff lives in week 17. And then the Seahawks, well, they're probably going to be vying for a division crown unless, of course, they fall off the wagon. And then the Niners just rise to power, which probably would be the best case scenario for the Niners fans, but I digress. I'm actually going to make a prediction before going off to and making my prediction for Rams-Saints. I predict Rams-Chargers is going to get flexed out of primetime because I know Sunday Night Football can only flex out a certain amount of games, but do people really want to watch the Rams, the struggling Rams, take on the injury-battered Chargers? I don't think so. Besides, the Chargers are getting the flex treatment this week as they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, but more on that later. So that's just my little prediction. But if Sunday Night Football can't flex out Chargers-Rams, then bully for me. But as for my prediction for the Saints and for the Rams, this has ugly game written all over it. And I feel that this one is going to be extremely ugly. I mean, it's Andy Dalton out of it, away from his prime, versus Matthew Stafford, whose ship is pretty much sailed after last year's Super Bowl. Marcus makes this little interesting comparison. It says, reminds me of the 90s before Vermeil and Martz showed up. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much the a good little not good little comparison. But for my prediction for the Rams and Saints, I got the Rams winning. Now, I know the Rams are this beaten up. They don't have Cooper Kupp, but they should still adapt without him. Like, they have to adapt, because if they don't, then they're going to get chewed up and spit out, because I can tell that the Chiefs game is going to be a loss. The Seahawks game is probably going to be a loss. So, yeah, but for the Rams, I have them winning. Let's go 20-17. I think it's so ugly. We only see it's going to be 7-7 at halftime, and then it's eventually going to get ugly. And my boy Courtney Hard just popped in the chat room. He says, "What up? Appreciate you popping in, Courtney." I'm guessing that Courtney Harden being an Eagles fan, he wants the Saints to lose to the Rams as well, just because the Eagles have the Saints' first-round pick. So, by the way, if you're listening live on Spreaker, you're welcome to pop in the chat room. It doesn't cost anything. All you just got to do is create an account and then just follow the link. And then where it says live, just click on the link and then listen on in, and then you can just chat with me, like Marcus Losgreat and Courtney Harden are doing. But I got the Rams winning 20-17. It's going to be ugly game written all over it. And here's hoping the Rams can salvage whatever left of their season that they have. But if they can't win this week, it's pretty much over, because they'll drop to 3-7. I don't think they're not going to beat the Chiefs, just because the Chiefs are just that good. So they'll be 3-8, which the Chargers were 9-8 last season, and they couldn't even get into the playoffs. I don't see how the Rams get in even if they ran the table. And then they also have the Seahawks, which have drastically improved. So overall for the Rams, it's basically do or die here, because the only winnable games I see on their schedule on paper are the Raiders, Broncos, and maybe the Chargers. And obviously the Saints, but that's just 4 games right there, so that would only give them a total record of 7 wins, so we'll see. But overall, it's sink or swim for the Rams this week, and I'm pretty sure Saints fans are going to want to tickle their fancy to see the Rams struggle at the Superdome, but we'll see. Courtney says, Eagles ready to get back on track? Yep, I think the Eagles will get back on track. They're playing the Colts this week, so I don't think they're going to struggle. At least I hope not. All right, jumping over to the Chargers, it was a rough game for the Chargers. They actually were looking impressive early on, as they actually blocked a punt, they forced a turnover, and basically everything was going. They were actually doing everything right, and they made sure the Niners weren't getting touchdowns until the end of the quarter. And for the most part, everything was going swimmingly for the Chargers in the first half. And then the offense just froze because the Niners defense stepped up. They only had 3 first downs in the second half. They were held scoreless, and they were held to 53 yards overall, which is not going to get the job done. And something that was really the big turning point, the Chargers got all the way down to the Niners' 2-yard line at one point. I think it was 10-3 at that point. And instead of just running the ball with Austin Eckler, they decided to have Herbert try to throw a screen pass or just throw some sort of pass, and then he has to throw it away. Next play is a false start on the offense, and then it's basically 3 more passes, which unfortunately does not go anywhere, and then it's a field goal. If you want to be a team like the 49ers, you're going to need touchdowns. You can't afford to just kick field goal after field goal. Field goals are nice. They're good to build off of, but they don't help you win games. And eventually, the Niners found their footing offensively, and they eventually found the end zone, as basically Jimmy Garoppolo was just handing the ball off. And there's this very interesting stat from Jimmy Garoppolo, as he's 10-2 the Niners are 10-2 whenever Jimmy Garoppolo does not throw a touchdown pass. Big oof right there. And Garoppolo didn't have a touchdown pass. He did have a rushing touchdown, and as well as Christian McCaffrey. But overall, the Chargers offense just was stuck in quicksand. And honestly, it didn't help that the defense was dropping like flies. It got to the point where the Chargers were down to just only 3 defensive tackles. I think it was 3 defensive tackles, if not defensive ends. That's just how beaten up the Chargers were defensively. And it was just so bad. It was just bad, dude. It was just so ridiculously horrible. It was a miracle the Chargers only lost by 6, just because the extra point was missed when Christian McCaffrey went in on that touchdown. So the Chargers were basically spared for a little bit until the eventual cloak and dagger of the Chargers turning it over on downs during the next drive. And basically, yeah. And then eventually the eventual game-winning interception from Talanoa Hufanga, the former USC star. So overall, it was just it wasn't bad per se, but the result was bad. But the silver lining is the Chargers were missing I got to look up the list of who the Chargers were missing in terms of their players, because there's actually a big old list which has all of the players that were not playing. But overall for the Chargers, the silver lining is, well, A, they covered, which was absolutely a miracle, and B, they only lost by 6 without a majority of their stars. Other than that, it still wasn't really a great game. It was basically bad, dude. It was just not fun. And what was worse is that a couple of the Chargers players, Christian Covington and Otito Ogbonnia, they're out for the season. So that's basically double jeopardy right there when it comes to the Chargers' injury woes. It's gotten to the point where the Chargers had to sign Tyler Davison off the Browns practice squad, who is a 7-year veteran who has 90 career starts with the Saints and the Falcons, which is nice, which is pretty cool. And overall, and the post game for the Chargers, obviously everyone was disappointed. All the players were disappointed. The coach was disappointed. And something to note is that the Chargers gave up, I want to say it was like 153 rushing yards to the Niners. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, well, that's obviously because the Chargers had a bad run defense. Here is the thing, however. The Chargers, the Niners, they basically ran the ball over 40 times, which, all in all, despite giving up 153 rushing yards, the Niners only had 3.6 yards per carry, which it's a complete miracle, which, yikes. So overall for the Chargers, they'll take that number any day. So the silver lining is the run defense wasn't as bad. It wasn't as worse as the Browns or the Seahawks or any of the other games where some of their where the opponent's star running back ran rampant on the Chargers defense. But overall, it was not a great game for the Chargers, and it sucks because I feel that this team does have potential. It's just that they're all injured. Here is who the Chargers were missing. They were missing their running back 2, their wide receiver 1, their wide receiver 2, their wide receiver 4, their tight end 1, tight end 2, left tackle 1, right tackle 1, defensive linebacker 1, defensive linebacker 4, their defensive linebacker 5, their edge rusher 1A, their edge rusher 3, their cornerback 1, their kicker 1, and their kicker 2. Did I also mention that their Justin Herbert was injured, and then the linebacker 2 missed some time tonight, which was Kenneth Murray, and then wide receiver 3, Joshua Palmer, he missed some games already. So that's just probably the gist of it. There's probably more, and this was courtesy of Alex Katzen, who I guess is a parody account, but he is a writer for Neptune Scouting, and he's also works for the Chargers Wire. But overall, those were all of the players the Chargers were missing. Running back 2 was Joshua Kelly. Wide receiver 1 and 2 was Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Wide receiver 4 is Jalen Guyton, who's out for the year. Tight end 1, Donald Parham. Tight end 2 was... tight end 1 was Gerald Everett, who missed the entire game. He actually had a groin injury, and then he missed the entirety of the rest of the game. And he was actually one of their more effective targets until he went out. Though it looks like his injury isn't as bad. Tight end 2 was Donald Parham. Left tackle 1, I want to say, was Trey Pipkins. Right tackle 1 was Rashawn Slater. And then obviously they were missing players like Joey Bosa and Dustin Hopkins, their kicker. J.C. Jackson, who, poor guy, I feel horrible for him, tore his ACL. And they were also missing Charbonnet, their kicker too, which came from the New York Jets, who obviously he had to take over in the Browns game. But overall, for the Chargers, it's when it rains, it pours with injuries. And then also losing, like I said, they just lost Christian Covington, and they also lost Otito Ogbonnia to season-ending injuries, which is absolutely horrible. So this is the state of the Chargers. Once hailed as possible Super Bowl contenders, they're now in the verge of possibly missing the playoffs. Not all of it is on Herbert. Not all of it is on the injuries. Part of it is mainly on Joe Lombardi, their offensive coordinator, who is turning Justin Herbert into a check-down magnet, which I dislike. If anyone has got to go, it is not Brandon Staley. It has to be Joe Lombardi. He is a terrible offensive coordinator. His system fits more with the Saints and Drew Brees, and Justin Herbert is not the Saints or Drew Brees. So they got to get rid of Joe Lombardi ASAP if he continues to underachieve. I'd rather have Brandon Staley calling the plays instead of Lombardi, but I digress. So the good news is for the Chargers is that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, as well as Gerald Everett, have been practicing in limited fashion, which is good, and hopefully it's a sign of things to come, and Keenan Allen is hopeful he'll play this Sunday against the Chiefs. Mike Williams was ahead of schedule when it came to his ankle injury, and it looks like he might be coming back for the Chiefs. Not 100% though, but it is something to watch for, and boy howdy, if the Chargers could get one, if not both of those, sorry, a little hiccup. So if they could get those players back, then that would be huge. Chargers just released their game statuses. So questionable is Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and then doubtful is Dustin Hopkins. Honestly, go with Cameron Dicker, the kicker. He has not missed a kick, which is for the Chargers this season, which makes me happy. And I feel they got to get Cameron Dicker. I wouldn't say his official spot, but the dude is pretty much automatic. He had the game-winning field goal and game-tying field goal against the Falcons. Why not keep Cameron Dicker until Dustin Hopkins is fully healed? So I'm totally fine with the Chargers resting Dustin Hopkins one more week. So unfortunately, they have not released the final injury report for the game, but all I know is that the questionable is Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and then doubtful is Dustin Hopkins. It looks like Gerald Everett is off the injury list, which is good, because the injury list going into today consisted of Keenan Allen, 2 limited practices, which I imagine he was limited for today, and then DeAndre Carter was limited, but since he wasn't on the injury report or the game statuses, I imagine he's going to play. He actually was big time for the Chargers in the Niners game. I mean, granted, Herbert only had 195 passing yards, but DeAndre Carter has performed well as not only a kick returner, but a wide receiver as well. Gerald Everett had a groin injury. He was limited pretty much all week, but he's not on the game statuses thingy. Dustin Hopkins is doubtful. Khalil Mack was not injury-related. It was probably just veteran rest, so that's good. Trey Pipkins looks like he's going to be able to play. his was probably 50-50 when it came to last week, and Staley made the correct decision by not having Trey Pipkins out there. And then Chris Rumpf was also limited, but he should be back since he wasn't on the game statuses. J.K. Scott had an illness, which kept him out of practice the past 2 weeks. Scott is the puncher, by the way, but he is not on the game status list. He practiced in full today, so he is good to go. And then Mike Williams, like I said, he was limited all week. He is questionable for this week. So all in all for the Chargers, this week they have the Kansas City Chiefs. My thing is for the Chargers, if they need a big breakout win, this is the one. If they want to have any sort of hope of winning the AFC West or making the playoffs in general, they have to win this game. I understand the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes have not lost a divisional game on the road, but there's a first time for everything. I feel this is the Chargers' chance to pull out a big breakout win. Now, they're going to need to get everyone involved offensively. Like, it just can't just be DeAndre Carter, or even if Mike Williams or Keenan Allen come back, it can't just be them. It's got to be everyone. Joshua Palmer's got to do his thing, and get Austin Eckler involved. Let him run. If the offensive line is doing their job and working their magic, to whatever magic they have, they basically are going to be creating holes for Eckler, and he unfortunately did not get the rushing yards that everyone so desired, but I feel this is his chance to shine. And I saw on Instagram that someone had the claim following the takeaway for Week 10 saying that we need to stop making excuses for Justin Herbert. Well, it's tough to not make excuses for Justin Herbert when his coach, Brandon Staley, is having a lot of questionable calls with going for it on fourth down, and he's putting his life in pretty much danger with that bad O-line. The offensive coordinator is atrocious, as, like I said, Joe Lombardi is making Justin Herbert into a check-down magnet, along with quick slant plays, which has been completely bad, and, again, just absolutely trash offensive play calling. And then his tackle, like I said, all of the injuries have just been completely bad. And then the defense has been pretty much just a wide open gate for players to just come and go in terms of not just rushing yards, but in terms of like scoring altogether. And then they play Patrick Mahomes and the whatchamacallit, the Chiefs this week. And that's going to be a tough one as well. I mean, here's the thing for the Chiefs, though. They will not have Juju Smith-Schuster as he is in concussion protocol. I feel for the poor guy because that dude just got blasted by one of the Jaguars defenders, and it was just ugly, dude. Very ugly. That should have been a kick-out right there. Or not a kick-out. That should have legit been a ejection. Like, everyone thought that Drake Greenlaw's hit on Herbert was bad. Look at the play that one of the I don't know the Jaguars defender name was, but it was just a dirty hit on Juju overall, which obviously procced flags. So it was actually 157 rushing yards that the Chargers gave up against the Niners, but that's only 3.8 yards per carry out of 41 times the Niners ran the ball. So for the Chargers, they will take that number any day outside of all the other times they've given up like multiple rushing yards and rushing yards per attempt. And Sebastian Joseph Day does have the right to be frustrated. He said in a quote, he said after the run game or the run defense against the Niners run game, he says, well, it doesn't matter because we bleeping lost. And I understand his frustration, but the silver lining is, like I said, only 3.8 yards per carry, only 157 rushing yards given up. It's been a whole lot worse for this run defense. So for the Chargers, there are some silver linings within the loss. They fought like hell, excuse my French, fought like heck against the Niners on the road, mind you. So overall, there are some silver linings. There are some good takeaways. There are some not so good takeaways. But overall, the fact of the matter is the Chargers need to get healthy, but they're not going to get healthy overnight. Now for the Chiefs, this one's going to be tough. Like, I really want to pick the Chargers to win, but my thing is, with how beaten up they are, and with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams being questionable, I don't know, man. Like, it's probably going to be a game-time decision up to that point. But truthfully, I have the Chargers losing this one. As much as I don't want to see the Chargers lose, I think that it's probably going to happen. But I think the Chargers give the Chiefs all they can handle. I think the Chargers fall by a score of 28-20. I think the Chargers get close within the Chiefs. I think they give the Chiefs a little bit of a scare, but I think the Chiefs just step up big time just because they have a lot of good playmakers defensively. I know they lost Tyrann Mathieu and Chadarius Ward, but they still have players like Nick Bolton, who is definitely a talent unmatched on the Chiefs, as well as a few other players. So for the Chiefs, it's going to be, they should win this one, but I would be surprised if the Chargers gave it their all, because the Chargers don't have much to lose outside of like wild card. I wouldn't say wild card standing, but like wild card positioning. But if the Chargers do pull off a win, it would probably be their most statement win of the season, just because the Chargers haven't really had too many big-time wins. So the Chargers are kind of playing with nothing to lose, while if the Chiefs lose, their lead over the Chargers in the AFC West dwindles down to one game, and the Chargers draw closer to a wild card spot, which, in addition to getting closer to the Chiefs, would benefit them. But overall, I got the Chiefs winning 28-20. I just feel that the Chargers, if they were a little bit more healthy, and if I had more clarity of Mike Williams and Keenan Allen's status instead of them being questionable, I think I'd be a little bit more confident heading into this game, but I will not mind if I'm wrong, though. If the Chargers do somehow win, I will gladly eat my crow on the next episode. That's going to do it for the NFL portion of the show. Jumping over to the NCAA football portion of the show. Short and sweet, the USC just trampled Colorado. At first, it was looking like it was going to be ugly just because, well, the Trojans started slow, and it made me a little bit concerned, but the Trojans kicked it into high gear, and they just stomped all over Colorado, 55-17. Obviously, USC was missing a lot of players, but unlike the Chargers and Rams, they didn't make excuses. They still had Caleb Williams doing his thing. His favorite target was Kyle Ford. Despite only getting 3 catches, he had 73 yards, which actually led the team, that's interesting. The only negative from USC was that Caleb Williams sadly threw an interception, which is only his second of the season, so it's not all his fault. The other bad news for USC is that they lost Travis Dye to an injury, so that's a big yikes right there. Travis Dye is out for the remainder of the season, as if USC can't lose any more top players. So basically, Caleb Williams is their new running boy when it comes to running the ball. But they also have other running backs such as Darwin Barlow and Austin Jones. Austin Jones is going to have to be their big-time running back, and he has the veteran experience. Also, don't count out Rayleigh Brown. This dude is only a freshman. This dude came out of Mater Dei, and hopefully he's able to come up big. Marcus pops in and says Caleb has been amazing all season, and Marcus actually also mentioned something else, and this is actually what I'm going to attain to in a little bit. He says, we need to handle business, and we will make it to the BS or BCS. I will be getting into that a little bit later. So, yeah, the Trojans just handled business. It's against Colorado, though. USC is Colorado's daddy when it comes to football. There is no further discussion. USC owns Colorado in football. I don't want to hear anyone else saying otherwise. I don't want to hear anybody saying else about Colorado not being the son of USC football. Ever. But I really hope Caleb Williams does win the Heisman. Like, the dude is practically playing with an injured team. He's practically carrying the team. He had 2 rushing touchdowns on -4 yards, though he did have 8 carries. So the dude deserves some love, some recognition. This dude literally has been carrying USC. And if it weren't for that Utah loss, this dude would probably be the heavy favorite for the Heisman, because the Utah loss was obviously bad, but it's not all on Caleb Williams. Like, the dude practically played clean, and unfortunately the defense sadly could not hold. Though everyone is mentioning the refs were bad and Utah is a hostile environment and Cam Rising is basically second god to Caleb Williams in the Pac-12, I still think Caleb Williams is much better than Cam Rising. You give Cam Rising the tools that Caleb Williams has to have on a nightly basis with most of his receivers and top offensive weapons being out. I don't know if Cam Rising puts up the numbers that he has been with Utah. I'm not trying to hate on Cam Rising. I just think Caleb Williams has just been utilizing everything perfectly, and he is making sure he's not making excuses, which I salute him for. And my God, it just brings a tear to my eye seeing Caleb Williams continue to do good things despite all of the adversity he is going through. Now, obviously, USC won, which their next game is against UCLA, which is perfect segue to go into UCLA's ugly loss to Arizona. Now, I said last week this was going to be 100% trap. This could be 100% trap game material. UCLA wound up losing to Arizona 34-28. I could not believe it. I just could not believe UCLA lost this one. I'm like, how? You're at the Rose Bowl. You're playing Arizona. Did you look that far ahead? I was just dumbfounded. And the worst part is DTR didn't have a bad game. Zach Charbonnet played. But I guess UCLA's defense had the night off because they made this Jaden DeLora dude look like a god. So I don't know what happened with UCLA. And they also made this dude, Michael Wiley, look pretty decent at running back as well. I'm just so baffled by UCLA losing to Arizona. It's like, why? You're one of the Pac-12's last hopes of getting into the college football playoff, and you put out that wet fart of an effort against Arizona? A team that's rebuilding, a team that has young players, a team that's not going to be good for about maybe 1 or 2 more years. Sickening. I'm disappointed, UCLA. There's no dancing around it. That's just absolutely bad, dude. That's an embarrassment to the Pac-12 altogether. If it were to Utah or Oregon, it's not too bad, or Washington or Oregon State. It's not that bad, but you lost to Arizona at the Rose Bowl. I have no more words for this. I just have no more words. It's just pain. Just pain altogether. At least USC has the excuse of so many injuries. UCLA had their top running back. UCLA had a good portion of their receivers. DTR is a beast. Not as big of a beast as Caleb Williams is. No offense to him, of course. But he's still a beast. You can't be losing games to Arizona. That's just unacceptable. No wonder everyone hates the Pac-12. No wonder the Pac-12 gets no love, because UCLA has that effort against Arizona. So this week, UCLA and USC play one another at the Rose Bowl. Last season, UCLA laid down the wood on USC, defeating them a lot to a little and putting up 600 overall yards altogether, which 609 offensive yards altogether, which I'm sorry if I got to bring that up, but it's what happened. But for UCLA and USC, for USC, Marcus mentions that USC needs to handle business and they will make it to the BCS. USC is the last hope for the Pac-12 to have a team in the college football playoff. If USC doesn't get past UCLA, and or if they lose to Notre Dame, they're done. I mean, obviously, if USC beats UCLA, they now control their own destiny. USC wins against UCLA, they're in the Pac-12 championship. What USC also needs to remember is that they have one more game after this against Notre Dame, where they have to win that, because if not, then they'll go down the further and further in the college football playoff. And that would be no bueno if that were to happen. Currently, USC is number 7, which I don't understand why, because LSU has 2 losses, while USC's loss to Utah was only by 1. I get it. USC had to go down to the wire with Cal. I get they also struggled to put away other teams, but USC is still darn good. Like, there's no way USC should be ranked behind LSU. Now, no offense to LSU and what they've had, all the success they've had, but it just bothers me. Just shows that Pac-12 gets 0 love and SEC gets all the love. Anyway, so for USC UCLA, here's my thing. I feel that this is USC's time to shine. This is their big test to see if they can actually make it to the Pac-12 Conference Championship, and then if they can make it to the college football playoff. I definitely think USC is going to win this one. I really want USC to win this one. As a USC guy, nothing against the Bruins, but I just want USC to actually represent the Pac-12 before they head off to the Big Ten. I really think that USC does have the tools. Granted, most of their guys were out, but I feel that, again, Caleb Williams has done so much with the limited tools that he has, especially with the defense that has been porous pretty much the entire season as players have been dropping like flies. But overall, for USC, they got to come up big this week. It's against their rival. Nothing would be nothing, and I repeat, nothing would be worse than to lose to UCLA and cost yourself a spot in the Pac-12 championship, let alone the college football playoff. So I have USC winning, and I really hope I don't jinx the Trojans, but I have USC winning. What would be a good score? I have them winning 45-35. USC's defense is not good, but I think their offense is going to do just enough to hold off the Bruins. USC is only a 2.5-point favorite. I feel USC can cover. I feel it's going to be a lot closer than my final score, but I have them winning 45-35. I feel that the Trojans are riding high, even though they've been up and down when it comes to some of their games. Like, the Colorado game was probably a better momentum booster, let alone a confidence builder, compared to like UCLA losing to Arizona. Like, I just couldn't believe that UCLA lost to Arizona. Like, come on. And I even picked you, UCLA. Like, what are you doing, dude? So, I have USC winning, and hopefully they punch their ticket into the Pac-12 championship. Well, I'm not saying hopefully. I'm just saying that they should if they win. Because a win and they're in the Pac-12 championship in 2 more weeks. Lose, and they're pretty much going to have to bank on Cal, of all teams, to beat UCLA, which, if that were the case, then that USC rightfully does not deserve to go into the Pac-12 championship. Also this week, another game to watch for in the Pac-12 is Oregon versus Utah. That also could determine USC's opponent if USC gets to the Pac-12 championship. But this is USC's last Pac-12 game, and then next week they are at home against Notre Dame, and we all know that USC has to win that game. They have to win that game as well, just because Notre Dame is the last obstacle that USC needs to get by in order to make it to, or at least have a chance to make it to, the college football playoff. And then, well, not really, because they would still have the Pac-12 championship. But overall, USC has to take care of business this week against UCLA. Then they could focus on Notre Dame the following week, and then the Pac-12 championship the following week. And then we'll see where the chips land in terms of the entire rankings, just because I'm pretty sure Georgia and or UCLA Georgia or LSU is in. Michigan, the winner of Michigan, Ohio State is probably in, and I want to say that's pretty much it for the most part. Oh yeah, we have TCU. I forgot about TCU. So if I had to make a projection, I'd probably say Georgia, Ohio State, TCU, and USC. Those that would be my predicted Final Four. And then we'll see what happens with USC going into this college football playoff. Knowing USC's luck, they're probably going to be the 5, and they're going to get left out, which typical college football playoff committee. All right, that's enough of the Pac-12. We got to show a little love to the Mountain West Conference as, well, I will say this. San Diego State actually did something good this past week as they actually beat San Jose State by a very healthy amount. They beat them 43-27, which I'm very surprised that San Diego State actually, hence the word actually, put forth not only a solid defensive effort, but an outstanding offensive effort. They fell behind 14-0, but then they reeled off a whopping 38 unanswered points going into the third quarter. What? Where was this? Where was this prior to this game? Where was this offensive output prior, dude? Like, come on. And then San Diego State got a big-time performance from Jalen Maiden, who had 3 touchdown passes. His favorite target was Tyrell Shavers, senior wide receiver, who had 111 receiving yards. So the win is big for San Diego State because now the Aztecs are officially bowl game eligible. I'm giving you a golf clap just because you better be bowl game eligible. Because if you're not, then I want you out of here. I want you out of Southern California. You don't deserve to be San Diego. Well, actually, you do deserve to be San Diego, just because that city, in terms of sports, oof. Anyway, so for San Diego State, they play tonight on FS1 at New Mexico. All San Diego State could do is hope for the best. They are currently 1 game back of Fresno State, and you also got to remember that Fresno State has the tiebreaker over San Diego State, and San Diego State is tied with San Jose State, which San Diego State has the tiebreaker over San Jose State. And then Fresno State also has the tiebreaker over San Jose State. So the only way Fresno State is able to not represent the Mountain West Conference in the Western Division is if Fresno State loses out, which is not going to happen because Fresno is playing Nevada tonight, or they're playing Nevada Saturday, and then they're playing Wyoming, which is actually pretty good, on Friday. Other than that, San Diego State, their odds of making the Mountain West Conference Championship is basically slim to none. They only have themselves to blame because they choked a 11-point lead against Fresno State a couple weeks ago, and that was the most San Diego way for them to lose a game. Basically, Fresno State recovered the onside kick after Fresno State got a touchdown in the last minute or so, and then they got a late touchdown on the first play of the drive. You all should check out my little rant on San Diego State from last week. I basically let San Diego State have it, but all San Diego State can do is just see what happens with their games. They can't control what Fresno State controls. Otherwise, San Diego State would probably be in the Mountain West Conference Championship. But overall for San Diego State, their window of Mountain West Conference Championship is pretty much closed. Unless, of course, Fresno State loses to Nevada, which that's not going to happen because Nevada is not good. But the win over San Jose State was actually pretty good. Like I predicted last week, I predicted a close game between the Aztecs and the Spartans, but San Diego State really burst out into the scene offensively, and that was what really made me impressed. It really made me impressed, and I couldn't believe it. So good job to San Diego State for becoming bowl game eligible and not blowing a lead. So you're one positive that San Diego has. So hats off to the Aztecs on their win, and it makes me happy. speaking of San Diego and football, San Diego, the University of San Diego in the FCS, they actually defeated Davidson, not Davidson Crooks, last week, 31-14, which is surprising because Davidson is actually 7-2 going into this game, and then San Diego was 3-4. And where was this offense been? After San Diego fell behind 7-0 in the first quarter, they ripped off 31 unanswered, and even though they didn't score in the fourth quarter, they basically held Davidson to only one touchdown after 5 seconds in the fourth quarter. So San Diego actually did something good, which is surprising, to say the least. San Diego closes out its regular season against Morehead State this Saturday on ESPN3 at 9 a.m., which is cool, I guess. So overall, the nightmare is almost over, San Diego. And then as for Cal Poly, jumping over to them, Cal Poly got trounced by Montana State 72-28. If I didn't know better, I thought they were playing basketball, but Montana State really laid down the wood on Cal Poly. Yikes, Cal Poly. They were down 51-14 at halftime. 51-14. Big yikes right there. Oh my goodness. Cal Poly made Marquis Johnson, a sophomore running back, look like Marshawn Lynch / Nick Chubb / Todd Gurley in his prime / Alvin Kamara / Christian McCaffrey without injuries / you get the point. Cal Poly made this dude, Marquis Johnson, look super elite. And this was just in the running game. Like, Cal Poly just could not get anything going. It was just so sad. And apparently, Montana State also had a fumble return touchdown, which went for 0 yards. Cal Poly season in a nutshell right there, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, God help me. Poor Cal Poly. Thank God the Big West doesn't claim them in football. All right, but that's enough college football happening this time around. Something else to note before we get off the football train from Southern California. I'm actually going to be checking out the number one team in the nation in terms of high school football, Mater Dei, as they play Los Alamitos tonight, which I think it's going to be fun. I don't know if most of you heard this news, but Bruce Rollinson, the Mater Dei football coach, this is actually going to be his last season. He did actually hint that earlier in the season he was going to come back next year, barring any health setbacks. But unfortunately, lots of Pandora's box kind of opened and all of this whole thing happened. So I don't know if that's the reason why Rollinson is stepping back, but this is going to be Rollinson's last year. So I can't wait to see Mater Dei football in person. This is the number one team in the nation, and I'm excited to see the Monarchs and what talent they have. Just because I've never, ever, 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 ever seen a Mater Dei football game in person. Now I get to see a Mater Dei football game in person for the first time tonight as a reporter. So that's basically going to be it for the football portion of the show. We're going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we've got some NCAA men's basketball to discuss a little bit. And then we've got some NBA and NHL to discuss. Then we've got the Dum Dum of the Week. Keep it locked here. You are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Some say that Indiana is just a flyover state. Flatlands and cornfields, barns and country roads. What if I told you Indiana is the crossroads of America? What if I told you in all other states, basketball is just basketball? In Indiana, basketball is life. Crowded high school basketball gyms on a Friday night, and every barn with a basketball rim and a frayed, worn-out net. If you're interested in the heartbeat of America, and if you're interested in sports, if you have Hoosier running through your veins, the Crossroads Pod with Aaron X is made for you. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Each and every week, the Crossroad Pod covers all of Indiana sports. The pride of the horseshoe of the Indianapolis Colts. The blue-collar, bold swagger of the Indiana Pacers. The relentless pursuit of the sixth banner for the Indiana Hoosiers. The swing of the hammer of the Purdue Boilermakers. The swoop of the Cardinals of Ball State. The summoning of the echoes of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The growl of the Bulldogs of Butler. The intensity of an Indiana fever. The chop of the Indianapolis Indians. At the Crossroads Pod, if it is Indiana, we've got you covered. More than cornfields. More than country back roads. The Crossroads of America. Join me, Aaron X, every week. It's nothing but net.
Back with segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as Let's Whine About DMV Sports with Mike Pat. That goes live every Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. And also the Crossroads Pod with Aaron X. That goes live tomorrow, being Saturday, at 8 a.m. Pacific Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Aaron does an outstanding job talking about all things Indiana sports. And Mike Pat does an excellent job talking about all things DMV sports, whether it's Delaware, Maryland, or Virginia. And he also talks about all of the amazing exotic wines, as well as I've learned a lot about wines as well, not just through my mom, who is a wine connoisseur, but through Mike himself. Anyway, on to the second part of this show, as we're going to jump into some NCAA basketball. So I still have a bone to pick with USC men's hoops, as I'm still mad that they lost to Florida Gulf Coast, as heaven knows that was a close call right there. You want to know what else was a close call for USC? Them beating Vermont. They beat Vermont, which Cal State Fullerton also beat. USC beat them by a score of 59-57. I'm not kidding you. They lost 59-57, or they won 59-57 against Vermont. While that is a good score and all, and I'm happy USC got the win, why so little, dude? Is this USC team for real? It's like, how do you only beat a one-win Vermont team by 2 points? Vermont's only win was against Brown, and outside of that, they have struggled against the California schools, losing to St. Mary's by 16, and Cal State Fullerton in double overtime by 9. So the fact that you barely beat them by 2 in your home turf, or your home field, home court, I don't know what to tell you, dude. Oh my god. This USC men's hoops team is supposed to take the pressure off of me when it comes to the Lakers, not add a whole lot more worse off. Oh my god. Why do you gotta do this to me, USC? Why? It's getting to the point where now USC fans are now clamoring for Andy Enfield to be fired. And I definitely am having my concerns for Enfield. The worst part is that he actually signed an extension with USC, I think going all the way until 2028. And that if this is the result of barely beating Vermont and not barely, losing to Florida Gulf Coast, I'm very afraid of what the future has in store for USC men's hoops. So USC plays Mount St. Mary tonight at the Galen Center, and then next week on Wednesday they play BYU, which that better be a win. I mean, BYU isn't like Gonzaga or St. Mary's, but it's basically the bad boy mowers battle for Atlantis. I don't know what kind of tournament that is, but I hope USC does pull out the win. I mean, that should be a good win going forward, especially if BYU continues to have a good season when it comes to their year, as BYU beat Idaho State and Missouri State before losing to San Diego State last Friday on Veterans Day. More on San Diego State a little bit later, but jumping on over to UCLA, the Bruins just continue to do UCLA good things, as this past Monday they beat Norfolk State 86-56, and then last Friday UCLA just laid down the wood against Long Beach State, my alma mater, 93-69. Again, I still will never, ever, 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 to this day, find out why UCLA is always the home team whenever they play Long Beach State. Even when they played twice one season, UCLA was the home team. It makes zero sense, and how is Long Beach State supposed to beat UCLA at Pauley Pavilion? Like, UCLA is already stacked as it is, and now playing on the road multiple times just ups the ante tenfold. Anyway, so UCLA returns to action tonight at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time against number 19 Illinois. So now it starts to get a little tough for UCLA, as Illinois, that should be a very good game. I mean, Illinois always coming from Big Ten country, that's a good team like right there. And then next Wednesday they have Pepperdine. Pepperdine is a little underwhelming. Obviously 2 seasons ago they won that CIT championship, and I think that was the one year where Pepperdine nearly took down UCLA. But for UCLA, they should be able to handle them. Like, UCLA isn't going to really be challenged until they play Oregon, maybe Stanford, in the first week of December, which I'm sure they'll probably get by. They won't be extremely challenged until they play Kentucky. That's going to be a big one right there. Let's see if UCLA men's hoops can take down the Wildcats. So that's pretty much that for UCLA and USC in men's hoops. Jumping over to San Diego State. San Diego State has been off to a very good start. So their season opener, they beat Cal State Fullerton 80-57. And then last Friday, they took down BYU, like I just mentioned, 82-75. And then this past Tuesday, San Diego State beat Stanford 72-62, which I thought is impressive. I really think that is an impressive victory. I mean, doesn't Stanford have like a good amount of players from last year's team? Like, if I remember correctly, that Stanford team was the team that took down USC when they were the number 4 team in the nation. Ugh. Anyway, so for San Diego State, they return to action on Monday in the Jim Maui Invitational against Ohio State. Or I'm sorry, the Ohio State, which is actually going to be their only game of the week because they've got Thanksgiving break next week. And then the following Tuesday, the November 29th, they are back at San Diego State against UC Irvine, which is also 3-0. So can't sleep on the Anteaters though, because their wins, surprisingly enough, UC Irvine. This UC Irvine team might be something special. So last Friday, UC Irvine took down number 21 Oregon 69-56. A few years late from when you all played them in the Sweet 16, comprende, as unfortunately that was the year where UC Irvine lost to Oregon in the Sweet 16, and then their head coach, I'm blanking on who the head coach of UC Irvine is. It's not Dan Monson, but it's the guy that made a jerk statement from about one of the Oregon players with whose last name I think is King, Patrick King, and then he called him Patrick Queen, which big oof UC Irvine men's basketball coach. Like, I'm probably gonna find out his name eventually. Like, I'll remember. I'm still trying to remember it off the top of my head. But overall for UC Irvine, they're off to a 3-0 start. And Russell Turner, that's his name. So Russell Turner has his team off to a good start. Beating Oregon is no joke, especially since it was at Oregon. Like, my goodness, dude. If that's how UC Irvine's going to be against a ranked Oregon team, I can't wait to see them against San Diego State. I only wish the darn game was at the Bren Event Center. That would have been swell. Unfortunately, that is not the case because it's going to be in San Diego, which is not UC Irvine. Anyway, but for San Diego State, the next two games are big time for the Aztecs. As Ohio State is also 3-0, I really think the Buckeyes could give them a run for their money just because Big Ten teams are so much more different than that of like the California teams. And then obviously UC Irvine, they're obviously out for respect. I think this UC Irvine team looks promising for the Big West Conference. That's no disrespect to Santa Barbara or Long Beach State or maybe Cal State Fullerton. But I think Irvine is going to assert themselves as one of the top dogs in the conference. Obviously, the favorite to win the conference is Hawaii, but can't sleep on those anteaters. Like, UC Irvine is legit. So that is pretty much that for all the big-time men's basketball games. I should also make note that I feel bad for Cal. They lost to UC San Diego, except not really. I don't feel bad for Cal. UC San Diego beat Cal 64-62, and one of my friends who went to UCLA, he says he actually felt bad for Cal. He says Cal has a good football program and they have a good men's basketball program, but results like this is completely unacceptable. Well, he's not wrong, that's for sure, but I don't know if I could really defend. I don't know if I could defend Cal. Like, you're 0-2 against the Big West Conference. You lost to Davis by 10 at your gym, and then you lost by 2 to UC San Diego, who is still transitioning from Division 2 up to Division 1. I can't defend Cal. I'm sorry. Like, you lost to Cal. And you better not lose to Southern, otherwise there will be more roastings of you next week. I know I shouldn't really be talking about Cal just because that's not Southern California, but their first Pac-12 game is against USC, and there will be more roastings of Cal men's basketball once we get there. And this is no disrespect to the players. I know the players are trying, I know the coaches are trying, but it's like, you lost to UC San Diego. It was one thing with Davis, but now UC San Diego? Oof. Big oof, dude. So that is going to do it for the NCAA men's basketball portion of the show. Before I get off the train when it comes to NCAA men's basketball, I actually have to give a big shout out to USC men's hoops. Now, even though they narrowly beat Vermont and they lost to Florida Gulf Coast, they actually made some big-time news, which was absolutely amazing. As USC's men's basketball team actually signed the number one recruit in the nation, as they signed Isaiah Collier from Georgia. Yeah, the nation's top recruit per 24/7 Sports. committed to USC on Instagram Live, and boy howdy, that was a huge get for USC's men's basketball team. Did I mention this came the day after USC narrowly escaped against Vermont? So everyone's everyone's like hate toward Andy Enfield turned to love, which it's so funny. Like one day every USC fan was like, fire Enfield, this is an embarrassment, to Andy Enfield is a beast, he's a god, he's an amazing coach, he's a great recruiter, keep Enfield until the cows come home. So congratulations to Isaiah Collier on committing to USC men's basketball, but it gets even better for USC in terms of its athletics. So in addition to USC's men's basketball team signing the number one recruit in the nation, USC's women's basketball team actually signed the number one recruit in the nation as Juju Watkins, who is the number one recruit coming out of Sierra Canyon. She actually committed to USC, Southern California, as I want to say she chose Stanford and I think South Carolina over. She picked USC, Southern California, over Stanford and South Carolina. But all that matters is that Juju Watkins, the number one recruit in the nation, is also committed to go to USC, which is absolutely outstanding. I could not believe that, and congrats to USC. They're actually doing big things. And it's high time USC got a big-time recruit in women's basketball, just because USC women's basketball has not had the same success as USC men's hoops. And it's been a while since USC women's hoops has had the success. I want to say it's been way too long since USC women's hoops has had like a true number one commit, let alone a true successful season. But with Juju Watkins, this is going to be absolutely electric, and I can't wait to see what she brings to USC women's hoops. It's going to be so fun, and who knows, maybe the Trojans could be something special. So that's basically that for NCAA college basketball. Jumping over to some NBA, which we got to rip the Band-Aid off in super harsh fashion. So, unfortunately for the Lakers, not unfortunately, they have actually had a few days off, which has been a relief for Laker fans such as myself, as they haven't really played a whole lot. I want to say their last game came on either Sunday or Monday, as the last game was on Sunday, which, believe it or not, the Lakers actually beat the Brooklyn Nets 116-103 this past Sunday. Yay! Unfortunately, that was after the fact that the Lakers lost to the Sacramento Kings 120-114. Boo! So sadly for the Lakers, at least they beat the Nets. That's all that matters, except the Nets are no better, and they're just... Actually, no, the Nets are definitely better than the Lakers. Lakers are practically the second worst. They're the second worst team in the NBA, which is complete dog water right there. They're dog water, as only the Houston Rockets and the Detroit Pistons are worse than them. Speaking of the Detroit Pistons, the Lakers play the Detroit Pistons tonight after they gave their fans, after they got 4 days off, which was not by their choice. It was basically how their schedule went. And then the Lakers return to action Sunday against the San Antonio Spurs. And then the Lakers, following that, they play the Phoenix Suns on Tuesday in Phoenix. And then next Friday, the Lakers hit the road to San Antonio to take on the San Antonio Spurs in back-to-back games, mind you. Yikes. And did I mention that this is the day after Thanksgiving? So they're playing on Black Friday, and then they're also playing the day after Black Friday. So we'll see what happens with the Lakers going forward into that game. I'm just hoping for the best. Believe it or not, fun fact, the best team in California is not the Lakers, nor the Golden State Warriors, nor the Clippers. The best team in California is surprisingly the Sacramento Kings. I mean, record-wise, there's 8-6, but win percentage-wise, they have a win percentage of .571 compared to the Clippers' .563. So the best team in California is sadly the Sacramento Kings. For the time being, of course. This is obviously going to change because it's only a matter of time before the Golden State Warriors manage to rise to power again. But back to the Clippers, or jumping back to the Clippers managed to get back on track as they defeated the Detroit Pistons 96-91 yesterday. Then on Tuesday, the Clippers lost to the Dallas Mavericks in Dallas 103-101. And then Monday, the day before, they actually trounced the Houston Rockets 122-106. And then last Saturday, the Clippers got thumped by the Nets, the Brooklyn Nets, 110-95 at the Crypto.com Arena. So this week for the Clippers, they are back home at the Crypt against, is it the Crypt or the Crypt? I still don't like calling it the Crypto.com Arena. It'll forever be Staples Center. Anyway, so the Clippers play the San Antonio Spurs this Saturday, and then on Monday they play the Utah Jazz. Then this upcoming Wednesday they hit the road to the Bay Area to take on the Golden State Warriors. And then next Friday the Clippers return home to the Crypt to take on the Denver Nuggets. So outside of the San Antonio Spurs, this is going to be a big stretch for the Clippers. They're playing some pretty tough opponents. And then also they've got the Pacers, which aren't necessarily bad, but they're not necessarily good. And then they've got the Trailblazers as well, so that's going to be somewhat interesting right there. So overall for the Clips, we'll see what happens with them going forward. So that is basically going to do it for the NBA portion of the show. Jumping over to some NHL, it's not really getting too much better for the Kings and the Ducks, as the Ducks yesterday, they lost to the Winnipeg Jets 3-2, which has been the epitome of their season. But on Tuesday, they actually made an impressive comeback win as they beat the Detroit Red Wings 3-2 in overtime, which made me happy a little. Notice the word a little. And then on Saturday, they lost to the Chicago Blackhawks at home 3-2. So it's been a 3-2 notion. It's been a 3-2 like type of game for the Ducks in their most recent games. It feels like they're playing volleyball, but I digress. Anyway, the Ducks are hitting the road to St. Louis to take on the Blues on Saturday, and they also have a 2-game series against them as they play St. Louis on Saturday and on Monday. Next Wednesday, or this upcoming Wednesday, the Ducks return to Anaheim to take on the New York Rangers, and then next Friday, the Ducks will welcome the Ottawa Senators. So basically, the Ducks have just been absolutely atrocious. They are the worst team in the Pacific Division. Complete dog water. And in addition to that, the Ducks are the worst team in the NHL. It has been that bad for the poor Anaheim Ducks. I just want the season to end. As a Ducks fan, it just sucks. Help me, God. Anyway, jumping on over to the LA Kings. The Kings most recently defeated the Edmonton Oilers 3-1 on Wednesday, but this past Monday they kind of got burned by the Calgary Flames 6-5, and then on Saturday they edged out the Detroit Red Wings 4-3, no overtime included, by the way. I should also make note that last Thursday they played on Hockey Night against the Chicago Blackhawks on ESPN+, which was kind of cool. So tonight, the Kings continue their Canada road trip when they play the Vancouver Canucks at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Then the Kings head to I wouldn't say the Emerald City, but they head to the Pacific Northwest to take on the Seattle Kraken. Then on Tuesday, the Kings return home to welcome the New York Rangers. Then on Friday, the Kings head up to NorCal to take on the San Jose Sharks, which hopefully should be a win. I mean, for their sake, it better be. But the Kings will be at San Jose next Friday, which is basically going to be... Well, we'll see what happens next Wednesday. I forgot next week is Thanksgiving. Derp. But that is basically going to do it for the NHL portion of the show. So before we head on out of here... we have to give out the Dum Dum of the Week award. So the Dum Dum of the Week award can go out to anybody. It can go out to anyone, any organization, any person, any time, any place. No one is safe from the Dum Dum of the Week award. And anyone is able to get this Dum Dum of the Week. And like I said, it could be anybody that is going to be the Dum Dum of the Week. And I actually have 2 Dum Dum of the Week awards to give out just because I might not be able to go live next week, so y'all will have to bear with me, but I have 2 Dum Dum of the Week awards, ladies. I have 2 Dum Dum of the Week awards, ladies and gentlemen. So the first one I gotta give out is kind of a minor one, but okay. So as we all know, I don't know if anyone knows this, but the World Cup is getting underway this week, and I don't know what to say about this, but ESPN did something extremely dumb. So I don't know what ESPN was thinking when doing this. I really, really, really don't know what they were thinking on doing this. But everyone likes to have their fun when it comes to the internet, right? Right. But when it comes to ESPN and what they did with this little Photoshop thingy-majig, or whatever the heck they were doing with this whole thing, I don't know what they were trying to do, but SportsCenter, whoever ran the SportsCenter app, actually photoshopped other athletes' head on the current U.S. men's soccer team. And they tweeted out, "Imagine these American stars suiting up in this year's World Cup." So the U.S. stars that SportsCenter decided to Photoshop on the heads of consisted of Patrick Mahomes, Austin Matthews, Kevin Durant, Bam Adebayo, LeBron James, Saquon Barkley, Steph Curry, Odell Beckham Jr., Patrick Kane, Mike Trout, and Mookie Betts. All of which are not soccer players. Okay, I'm no soccer expert, but this is completely dumb. This is absolutely dumb. They eventually took down the tweet, but you can't get rid of things off the internet that easily. Once it stays on the internet, it stays. And also, why is Odell Beckham Jr. featured in these? Who would want Odell Beckham Jr. suiting up for the U.S. men's soccer team? Like, isn't he still like recovering from his ACL injury? Like, the last thing he needs is to put his leg in danger yet again. So I don't know what SportsCenter or ESPN was thinking, but it's just dumb. Like, and have any of those players even kicked a soccer ball? Do any of those players even know what a soccer ball is? Because those players that I just mentioned are basically NFL stars, NBA stars, and MLB stars, and then they've got a hockey player, and if they had put a kicker on there, like Justin Tucker, that would be totally understandable. Or a punter, that would be understandable. Or anyone that has played soccer. But I'm pretty sure the U.S. would get called for illegal hands on the ball when it comes to if they played on the U.S. men's soccer team. So, good job, ESPN. Way to do something extremely dumb. And those players would not last a minute when it comes to playing for the U.S. men's national team. But for ESPN's idiocracy and dumbness for posting that tweet and getting any sort of idea of those players playing for the U.S. national team, you are this week's Dumb Dumb of the Week Award recipient.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
So that is the first Dumb Dumb of the week. The second Dumb Dumb of the week. Okay, so we all know that the UCLA-USC football game is obviously going to draw in a big crowd. So, for those that know, this UCLA informed everybody that this is going to be a sold-out game. There's going to be a little over 70,000 plus at the game. It's going to be like 70,261 or something like that. Either way, UCLA has said that this game is sold out, which is awesome. So, good job, UCLA. Hold it! I wasn't done. But for those of you that are wondering, the Rose Bowl does not contain 70,000 people. It actually contains 90,000 people, and in addition to that, 20,000 of the seats are tarped off. Kind of like what the Chargers did. Okay, UCLA, you cannot just call this a sellout game when you're just covering tarp over seats. That is not a sellout game. That's making everyone blind to the fact that it should be a sellout game, but it really isn't. This is no sellout game, and you are tarping over 20,000 seats, and unfortunately, for those that don't have a ticket to UCLA, USC, you're out of luck, because UCLA is not going to untarp the seats. First of all, UCLA lied, which is not good. It's not a good look. And second of all, they said it was sold out when there's still 20 more thousand seats. You can't just give out more tickets to those that need to watch this game. Like, there are lots of diehard UCLA fans that would love to kill to come to this game. But unfortunately, you have tarped off the seats, and you lied to everybody. You lied. You said that this is going to be a sold-out game, when in reality, you still have 20,000 seats tarped off. I am sick to my stomach that you would lie to everybody. I can't believe that UCLA would do such a thing. And this partially makes me want to see USC win this one, just because you can't just say it's sold out when you have 20,000 seats tarped off. That's like the Chargers. That's basically like the Chargers passing off seats being tarped off when they played at the former StubHub Center or Dignity Health Sports Park. Either way, UCLA, I am disappointed in you and the fact that you were basically passing off being able to call a sold-out game when you have 20,000 more seats that are being covered up. But for UCLA lying to everybody and for tarping off 20,000 seats when they probably could have other UCLA or USC fans, you are this week's Dumb Dumb of the Week Award recipient number 2.
You're so dumb. You're so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that, my friends, is all she wrote. Sellout game, my rear end. Calling it a sellout game when you're tarping off 20,000 seats. That's ridiculous. Also, I gotta give an honorable Dumb Dumb of the Week award to all these hackers that are trying to take over Instagram accounts or Twitter accounts. Like, screw you, you're Dumb Dumb of the Week, mini Dumb Dumb of the Week. Matter of fact, you're not Dumb Dumb of the Week. You don't get the honor of having the whole Dumb Dumb of the Week sound effect. You basically are just absolutely dumb. You have no life. Go get a freaking life, because I don't give a frick what your life is. I hate how you're all just out to get like Twitter or Instagram accounts. It sickens me to my core. Stupid hackers. Anyway, so that is going to do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. It is high time for me to get on out of here, because I got to get dressed, because I got me some work later on. Ya dig? Thank you everyone for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I hope you all enjoyed, and I appreciate you all tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I definitely appreciate you. Big shout out to my boy Marcus Losgreek for popping in the chat room. I really do appreciate you tuning in. Salute to you, brother. Great job today with gloves off. Also, shout out to Courtney Harded of BS3 Network for popping in. Check out his stuff on BS3 Network, which is on Roku. He does a great job with his shows. He really does work hard. And Courtney Hardin is just amazing, as well as my boy Marcus Losgreek. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. I'm not sure if I'll have a show next week, just because y'all got to remember, it is Thanksgiving, so it'll depend on what my schedule looks like. It'll depend on what family looks like when it comes to it being here. But I'll keep you all posted as the week goes on. But until then, you all have yourself a great rest of the weekend. Enjoy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving in advance if I don't see you all. I'll see you all most likely on Monday for Set Point. That is still going to be live. But until then, have a great rest of the evening. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody in advance. And if you're available, I'm going to be at Mater Dei or Santa Ana Stadium for Mater Dei Los Alamitos. Gonna be a barn burner. But until then, have a great rest of the evening. And remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!